Have you ever done a sneaky Amazon purchase on your work computer?
Or maybe you zoned out during a training.
Oh, yeah, guilty. Or you've used your food stipend to buy, I don't know, nail polish? Well, guess what? We all have. The bad news is it might get you fired. On today's episode of Per My Last Email, you're going to learn about sneaky layoffs and the warning signs you might be missing. Let's get into it. You're listening to Per My Last Email. I'm Kyle.
I'm Kaila.
And as we said in the intro, we're going to talk about sneaky layoffs. And first, Kaila, what are sneaky layoffs? Why are we talking about them? There's been some news about them lately.
There has been some news. It's been bubbling up a little bit. There's been some anecdotes.
It's been a trending topic.
That certain companies are firing employees, not laying them off, even though we're talking about sneaky layoffs. We'll get into that in a second.
Yep.
For doing little sins.
Yes.
As the Wall Street Journal article talks about. Little sins like using your food stipend, your $25 lunch stipend to buy groceries.
Yep.
Or toilet paper. Or, using, certain work computers to do fantasy football
non-work-related
stuff.
Things.
Anyways, it's these little tiny things that are technically breaking the rules, but don't feel like real just cause. And companies are using that to justify firing somebody instead of maybe laying them off.
Yeah, and we can go through the list because I think what's interesting about this is, admittedly, not me, but generally, these are things that everyone has done. Not me.
Of course, you've never
perfect. And it feels a little like selective enforcement, where companies are now deciding, these things that everyone does and we've let slide for a long time, we're not going to let slide anymore. So Meta fired some people for abusing their food meal system. They said it was over a long period of time, and so go read the details for yourself, but that is why they got fired. Target fired employees for buying Stanley water bottles ahead of the public.
Wait. What does that mean?
The general public would come in to get the Stanley water bottles when everyone wanted them, and they wouldn't be on the shelves because I'm assuming employees just
Target employees bought them first.
Yeah, right when the store opened, I don't know, went and checked them out and said,
honestly,
got them.
But those sell for a lot. Get hired by Target.
Yeah. Honestly, they're playing the long game. They should have been rewarded. Make that person CEO.
Seriously.
They're thinking big. EY fired people for watching multiple training videos at once.
That's actually
Which again,
so
I've been trying to figure out how to do that. And I can never, somehow they know when you're watching.
But, okay.
And can I say one more?
Go.
This one I think is the most egregious. So lean in, put your earbuds in, turn up the volume a little bit. Fidelity fired people.
Yes.
Because they did fantasy football at work. Known thing, a little fun group activity where everyone's going to make a fantasy football league, opt in, some camaraderie, because it technically violated company policy of gambling at work. People got fired for fantasy football in the office.
Okay.
What is going on?
I have a take on that.
Okay.
My one take, and this might be my boomerist episode, so I apologize in advance.
Wow, Kayla's getting canceled. It was nice knowing you.
My hot take, for example, Fidelity is a financial company, and they have extremely strict rules on what is considered okay and not okay.
Yeah.
So of all of those, this feels like the least egregious.
No.
Yes, I'm serious.
What?
Because it's stupid. It's stupid, but
there's no way that someone at Fidelity didn't know this was happening. I guarantee this was probably during week 8 of fantasy football, and then they're
that might be true.
So it is my issue with this, which again, we're not trying to pick on these companies. They're illustrative examples, because if you do dig into the details, there might be some that were justified for reasons we don't know. But this is a common practice we're seeing. The news is talking about a lot. And my issue with it is or the thing that people should be aware of is selective enforcement. To me, it's when you're driving in a 30 mile per hour zone, you're driving 35. That's common practice. Go 5 above. And when you get pulled over, you're come on. This is common knowledge. This has been allowed by lack of enforcement. They're technically right.
Yeah.
And they can give you a ticket, and you're not going to be able to get out of it because you were going above the speed limit. The issue is everyone does it, and so it feels like the enforcement is not consistent, and it creates this sense that this is unfair.
Well, you know what, Kyle? If everyone jumps off a bridge, would you jump?
Okay, Mom.
I just really think that this is an interesting, it's a really iffy.
Okay.
My thinking on this, because I think the company is in the right and in the wrong at the same time.
They're in the right legally.
And also it's like, okay, if your rule is that this $25 stipend for lunch is exclusively at X, Y, and Z restaurants, and you use it at A, B, and C places, okay, it's like the company's money that they're giving you. I understand being like, hey, this isn't the rules in which we've outlined.
Yeah, like we gave you a clear rule.
Yeah.
Here's $25, go buy some food, and then you come back and you didn't buy food. Like, what do you think is going to happen?
Right, but it's also like, okay, like what's the percentage, right? You mentioned the speeding, 5% over, or 5 miles per hour over. Everyone does that. I drive 7 miles per hour over.
I've only driven the speed limit or under.
Right, but it's like, and I'm a serious rule follower. Like I am truly a rule follower.
Yeah.
Like I am very strict about, if you tell me I can't do this thing, I will not do it, and I will get very nervous if somebody around me does, which is like maybe a flaw of mine.
Kayla's watching all the training videos, 100% locked in.
But I mean, that's the thing, is like, what percentage of deviation from these rules
Exactly.
is considered inappropriate and a rule breaking thing that's worth like firing somebody over? And that's where I think the sneaky layoff term becomes relevant.
Okay.
Because if there's, for example, in 2018, this is again referring to the Wall Street Journal article that we've been talking about. In 2018, Wells Fargo fired like 12 plus bankers for doing exactly what we were just talking about, like with Meta, except instead of basically, like, these banks have these policies where if you're working after, let's say 7 p.m., you get $30 on Seamless to like order whatever, dinner for yourself.
Incentivized you to work harder and
Incentivized
longer.
you to work until 8.
Yeah.
And instead, they were ordering stuff at 6 p.m. and doctoring the receipts saying they ordered it at 7.
Yeah.
This, to me, is actually a violation of the policy. You are going in with the knowledge that you're breaking the rules and you're changing. That's not just like, okay, yeah, you should have ordered it an hour later. That's like, you're willing to do what is needed to be done to like save $25 and get out of work earlier.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that's not, you're breaking the rules and therefore I'm firing you. It's like, if you're doing this here on this thing, what else are you breaking the rules on?
And it's a great point you brought up. Like, that's banking. Like, if you're kind of doing a little fraud, you shouldn't do any.
Like, you could do a lot of fraud in banking. You know?
So like, everyone knows the saying. It starts with a little fraud, and then it's a gateway to more fraud.
This is what I was saying is, it's like, have you seen those, like, at the beginning in the 90s of like a VCR, like a videotape, where it's like, you wouldn't steal a car, like
you wouldn't download a Gucci bag, and you're like, what?
Don't pirate films or
literally
whatever. But it's like kind of like that. It's like, okay, this is so dramatic. Like, it doesn't really matter if I like download My Little Mermaid off of like Netscape or whatever the fuck. Yeah. But like, I understand the reasoning in some cases that is actually just cause.
100%. And I will just say, rule of thumb, if you have to open up like a PDF editor and like change timestamps, you're in the wrong. Yeah. So I'm with you on that. Like, Wells Fargo, like, you're like clearly violating policy, and it's like a little malicious. Yeah. Like, you're editing things, and basically you're saying like, I ordered this at 7. It's a clear lie. Yeah. So I'm with you on that one.
But the other ones, it's like, okay, this is the selective enforcement that you're talking about. It's like, if everybody's doing it and it feels like they've been giving the leeway for years, and now all of a sudden it's like, surprise.
Crackdown. That
feels like it's just a way to let go of people. Yeah. That isn't really like a concerning gateway drug to bigger issues.
Right. And so this is why we're calling this sneaky layoffs. Yeah. Because you're spot on. This isn't something that like Meta's always been hawkish about. Yeah. And always been like, we will enforce our rules so strictly. What we think is happening is when times are good and people are hiring a lot of people, and like the labor market is like, maybe like you're fighting for talent, you're willing to let things go. Yeah. And you just have so much going on, you can't even enforce the existing rules you have. The second that companies want to reduce headcount is a warning sign for you that like enforcement of the rules might be coming. And I would like knock off like any behavior that can be perceived as like outside of company policies, because for companies, it's much easier to be like, we're firing these people for cause for violating our policies rather than the PR backlash you're going to get for saying we're announcing layoffs. Because companies start announcing layoffs, people get a little nervous, people get a little scared. Other investors might think the company's not doing well. So I think in their calculus, it's better to say we're firing people for reason than we're laying off people.
I understand, but like think about the backlash. Like we're covering this. Like we're talking about this right now.
Yeah. Oh,
think about the backlash.
Zuckerberg's sweating. He's like, per my last email's covering this? Holy, get him on the phone.
But no, I think it's like it's almost better to just say, hey, we're laying off this team because we're going in a strategically different direction or whatever, versus being like, no, these people broke the rules and they spent $25 on the toilet paper that they need at home versus buying a Sweetgreen bowl.
Yeah.
And therefore they're getting fired.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's just like really bad optics also. And I would say worse.
I agree. I think the calculus is interesting. Like I think that is the calculus they're using, and maybe we disagree on like which path they should have taken. Like what's worse from a PR perspective, layoffs or firing people for like very minutia of breaking the rules. You know, I don't know. My preference would be just be honest with people and say, hey, we're laying you off, give them severance and move on. But this is where also the severance idea comes into play, because a lot of people are saying that the companies are doing this because it avoids them having to pay severance. But I think we should dive a little deeper into that, because you're going to, whenever you read these stories, like severance comes up. In most states, so like the federal law in the US, like companies do not have to pay you severance at a federal level. I'm not sure on the states, which any expert starts out with, I'm not sure, but I'll be honest. I'm not sure on all the states, but let's talk about New York specifically. In New York State, there is no legal obligation for a company to pay you severance. It is at the employer's discretion, or if it's baked into your employment contract that you sign with the company, then of course legally they would have to. But severance is much more of an idea than a guarantee.
Yeah, except...
Go for it.
I just feel like if Meta didn't give severance when they did layoffs, it would be a shitstorm.
Yeah, but...
Like you have to.
I agree, but you have to... The have to is not like a legal obligation. It is like, okay, if people know we give severance, then when we're going to be able to hire better talent, because they're not going to like risk joining the company, getting laid off and not getting severance. So it's like a talent attraction. It's also, I think, just like goodwill. Like, hey, you worked hard. We have to move in a different direction. We don't want a bunch of people saying like F Meta. So let's give them a severance package. Sometimes severance packages, you have to sign like non-disparagement agreements. And, you know, it's just like, it's a sign of good faith. And I think over the long term, companies that honor their employees with severance and with a nice working environment are going to win out over time. But there's not a legal obligation. And I think growing up, like, or even joining Morning Brew, like, you heard severance and I was like, oh yeah, companies like have to do that. That they don't. And so that is just like something to be aware of as you go into thinking about like how this might all shake out.
Yes, but if it's like, okay, 25 people are, you know, messing up and going against the rules, we're not going to change our severance policy for the entire company just so that we can get rid of them.
What do you mean?
Well, now I've confused myself.
Well, I think from a PR perspective and from an internal perspective, I don't know if they gave severance to these. No,
they certainly, I'm sure they didn't.
Employees. And I think what's easier is saying, yeah, we're firing you because you broke our rules, and like we're not giving you severance because like this is like
it's just cause.
It's just cause. Like you didn't follow the rule, and we're gonna fire you. And then internal people that are still at the company are like, okay, like they didn't get laid off, they broke the rules, so I'm just not gonna break the rules, but I'm still protected. Whereas if they did mass layoffs and they were like, also we're not gonna give anyone severance, everyone at that company is gonna start looking for new jobs. So I think it is like a game of like almost using certain language to like keep some people comfortable, to avoid doing things that maybe you don't want to do. So yeah, this is why we're talking about sneaky layoffs.
And we'll be right back after this. Okay, back to the show. And I think one of the things that is so destabilizing about this for the general populace, like you may not work at Meta, you may not work at Target, you may not work at Fidelity, but this is something that feels like it's a growing trend. Even if it's happened in the past, at least it's getting a little bit more coverage. So it can feel destabilizing to be like, okay, what about me? Like, we were just talking about this before. Like, I don't have a personal computer. Like,
Kayla's actively breaking company policy.
But I don't know. Is that company like? I genuinely have no idea.
Who knows?
And like, yeah, I have my work stuff obviously, and then I have my like little like Chrome profile of my personal email, and I'll open it up every so often.
Yeah.
I have my LinkedIn on there. You know, like I mean, I'm not actively looking for a job, but
Yeah.
like, it's up.
Yeah.
You know.
You're doing like, quote unquote personal stuff on a work computer, which I did for 3 years here too until I got my own personal computer. And I know a lot of people do that.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, should I be worried about that?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is that something that am I breaking the rules? Like, I genuinely don't know.
But okay, so this is what's the most interesting part of this conversation to me is like, it is a case, I guarantee that I've broken some policy at Morning Brew.
Right.
Like, I had a personal computer for 3 years. That was my work computer.
Yeah.
It's one and the same.
Yeah.
So like, I've definitely broken a policy. Does that mean I should get fired on the spot? No. Like, obviously there'd be like, you would hope like warnings, and if it's serious, like they would inform you and there'd be like remediation and you'd figure it out. And I think that's probably the case for most people. Like, I guarantee you go through any company's handbook, you listening to this episode have broken a rule at your company. And so has everyone else. And so that's, to me, like, we're all in this place now, exactly what you're saying, where you're like, should I be worried?
Yeah.
Like, is it like, am I going to get fired for like breaking a policy and they're going to like screw me out of severance, or like I'm not going to be able to like really fight back because like technically they're right. And that's like a scary situation to feel like you're in. And I don't think it creates a good culture. Like, to me, the Fidelity thing is almost the worst one, because it's kind of cool that people got together and are like playing fantasy football, bringing people together. You're making friends at work. There's some camaraderie. And then to like fire people for doing that, no one's going to start any clubs.
Yeah.
No one's going to want to do anything outside of work, because what if the selective enforcement regime comes for me next? Not a good place to build culture. And so my hot take, though, is like, if you're a star performer, this would never happen to you.
I don't know.
It's like, look, the facts are, if you are like a really high performer at work, you're going to get more leeway. You miss a meeting one day, they're going to be like, they missed a meeting, but like, look at their numbers. They're incredible. And if you're, as long as you're not like actively detrimental to the culture, but like they are doing a like, net positive or net negative rating. And I think your fear for selective layoffs or sneaky layoffs is like, if you're not performing well and they need a reason to get rid of you, they're going to comb through every policy that they can get you on. And that's why you're getting fired.
No.
If you're a star performer, LeBron James gets more leeway than D'Angelo Russell. And I know maybe that's a Lakers metaphor.
I have no idea who that is.
But come on, that's true.
I don't know.
You don't know?
No, I don't know. I'm serious, because I think
BS.
that's tough.
Okay.
Because if a company as big as Meta is like, let's go through everyone, like they have how many thousands of people, and they found 25, it's like, okay, they're going through the policies and they're looking through. Well,
okay, so let me give you
I don't like this. I don't want it to feel like it's their fault, though.
But we'll get to that. Just let me give you a thought experiment. When Sheryl Sandberg was COO of Facebook, do you think if she used her meal credit, $25, to like buy something that wasn't a meal, that she gets fired?
Well, here's the thing: is I don't think she has a $25 meal credit.
It is inconceivable.
I think she has a corporate card and she's using it on whatever she wants because she's high up enough.
Exactly. That's my point. But if you have power and the company perceives you as benefiting them, you're going to get more leeway. I'm not saying you can do anything. Obviously, there's egregious things that no matter how big you are, you should get fired immediately for. But I'm talking the marginal cases that we're talking about now. You buy a Stanley water bottle before the public can. If you're the best general manager in all of Target's corporate history and you buy a Stanley water bottle before the public, you still have your job.
I don't think it matters.
Kayla.
No, you're wrong.
You're kidding me.
I think you're wrong. I think Target is firing the best general manager they've ever had. Seriously, I'm so serious.
So you don't think that star performers at work get more leeway than, below average performers?
I think that generally is true. I think in this specific sneaky layoff situation, they're looking for cutting wherever they can. And if you break beyond the percentage, that's okay.
But why are they looking to cut? It's because they want to make their organization more efficient. They think they have too much headcount. But it's not like they stopped caring about results or performance or profit. If you're delivering bottom line profit to a company and they're paying you less than that, and you're not doing anything egregious, they're going to look the other way. I think what sneaky layoffs are is we have all these people who we just don't think are doing a good job.
But then just do regular layoffs.
But they don't want to do that for the PR backlash.
But then the PR backlash of firing somebody for spending $25 on toilet paper is way worse.
You can disagree with the calculus of like, is the PR from a layoff or PR from this, worse? But like, I just think if you're doing a really, really good job, you're going to have more leeway.
I think that's probably true.
Yeah.
Generally.
So now let's talk about, is it their fault?
Yeah.
Like, no, I think, again, I'm personally of the opinion that, like, just be truthful with people. You're not firing them because they watched 2 training videos at once. You're firing them because you overhired during a spree or you want to get more efficient, and just, like, be truthful. That would be my take. So I'm not saying it's their fault. I'm just saying if you perform well, you get more discretion.
You get more discretion, but I don't think it saves you from sneaky layoffs. If the company wants to do sneaky layoffs and you've broken a rule that they've decided is the bar.
Yeah.
I think that gets because that has even worse implications. Like, I know for a fact that I hit my goals last year and I paid my groceries with a $25 stipend and I did not get laid off. First of all, now I'm sweating.
Yeah.
And second of all, like, why did I make the cut? I think that creates a really weird culture where if they're doing bad, if they're doing poorly, put them on a PIP. And we can talk about sneaky PIPs, which I also, in my research for this, found that there's this like new wave of people that are getting put on performance improvement plans that have never been informed about their performance.
Interesting.
Have continued to perform according to the level that they're expected to perform. And they're getting put on PIPs to be pushed out.
See, this is like an interest. God, I might have a boomer take now too.
Oh, no.
Uh-oh. This is what's interesting to me is like, in some ways, I feel like the root of all of these problems we're talking about is like, companies are afraid to lay off people, and which, like, I get it's not like a good thing, and I don't think genuinely most people like get off on like firing people, unless you're like a psychopath or something. And so I think most companies that have to do layoffs, like, they're doing them for like the best interest of the business in general. But there is a backlash that comes when doing layoffs, and admittedly so, there should be. But I think like they don't want to like be truthful because it's perceived as a bad thing, where I wish it was just more like, it's not a fit. We're being truthful. We're paying people severance. Like, I like the Netflix policy, which is like, fire fast and give them a generous severance package. If it's not going to be a fit and we don't need you, we're adults here. We're not going to lie to you, but you took a risk on us coming here to work for us. So we're going to reward you with a generous severance package and make sure you land on your feet. I wish that was the world. And I feel like that isn't the world we're in. And it's causing all these weird downstream effects of firing people for fancy football now.
Yeah.
Makes no sense.
I 100% am aligned on that. I don't think it's a boomer take.
Okay.
But I do think it's true. It's like, if you want to downsize and own up to it.
Yeah.
And I think that's where these companies are in the wrong.
So my last take.
Okay.
And sorry to pick on Zuck. Please don't banish me from platforms or something, or like delete my WhatsApp. It's funny that Meta's coming after people who are like breaking these very marginal rules.
Ooh.
When the whole founder mode, I'm Zuck. Okay, Zuck, what rules
and break things.
What rules did you break at Harvard?
Genius.
Every single one.
Genius.
The whole company was started by coming up to the line and crossing it occasionally to get done what you had to get done. And now I'm not saying that people abusing food credits are doing it in the best interest of the company. But I do think there's a slight like irony here that all of a sudden Meta is like, we are sticklers for the rules, when every single startup had to break some rules to get to where they are. And it's almost, I think, discouraging this spirit and this mindset that they often tell their employees they want, which is like, move fast and break things. Don't take no for an answer. Get done what you have to get done. Okay. But also, if I know you're going to be a stickler for every single rule, I'm not going to adopt that mindset. So I think there's an irony there.
I think you
liked that one.
I think that's a genius
You liked that
take.
one.
I think that's a genius take. And also, Meta is not a company in Zuck's dorm room anymore.
Exactly. So as companies grow up. Yeah, I agree.
And I think this is an unfortunate way to like prove that they're growing up. Obviously, they've been around for like 20 years. Like they're grown.
Yeah.
But like they can drink. If Meta was a person, it could go to the bar.
They might have like AARP benefits at this point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I do understand what you're saying. I think that's a fantastic point, and I think it is a little like hypocritical. That being said, big boy company needs big boy rules. You know what I mean?
Big boy company needs big boy rules. That's good. I might just start saying that randomly.
Perfect.
Okay, so I think why are businesses doing this, and just like to like make it most relevant for you, the listener. I think we're going to see some like headcount reductions in general, macro trend, because of, efficiencies of AI and like more focus on the bottom line. And like, we're kind of over the like massive hiring spree of COVID. Yep. And I think we are in this mode of like, Zuck literally called it like the year of efficiency. I think companies are trying to get like more efficient, and they're being a little more critical about headcount. So that's why I see this happening, getting macro scale. What can you do about it? So Kayla, like, I'm a listener. I'm listening to this. I'm like, okay, like, this is really interesting. I've seen this in the news. Like, what should I be doing? Do you have advice for people listening?
Thank you so much. I have 3. First, it sucks, but really, you got to not break the rules.
But I want to break the rules.
I know, but it's one of those things like, yes, something that you don't realize you're breaking. Like, if you've done in the past, spending $26 instead of $25, whatever, it's fine. Moving forward, try to not be malicious and break the rules. That being said, I think it's also very important that I really am about to like prove that you're right. Keep a list.
Keep going.
Keep a list
Say
of your
more.
accomplishments and communicate them. Because if you're a high performer, chances are they'll have more leeway with you. I can't believe I wrote that down, completely blacked it out, completely forgot, and
That's
then
right.
was ready to.
But I like it. You kind of have an instinct. If I say something, you got to attack it, and I
gotta say
respect
it's wrong.
it.
But I do ultimately, whatever, it's fine. But I think that by making yourself more obviously high performing, that does help give you a little bit of that extra wiggle room. Maybe it takes the percentage of like the speeding analogy from 35 to 37 miles per hour.
You get a little
pulled over.
Yeah, you get 10 miles per hour instead of 5.
Right.
Yeah.
And finally, I think keep an eye out for the leading indicators that would indicate that maybe a company is starting to pull back, starting to feel
a crackdown is coming.
Yeah, and at that point, that's when you should really get into like protection mode.
Yeah.
But I think that's advice for generally all layoffs. What do you think?
I think it's really good advice. I would say like it's probably a good time in researching this episode, because we do research. I read about one article. It just reminded me that like severance isn't a right. And I'm not saying it should be or shouldn't be. I'm just like, it's not a right. In New York State, like no one's going to pay you severance. Most people work in a state that's like at will employment. You can leave whenever you want. They can fire you whenever you want. And like, sometimes it's just good to remind yourself that like, it's not a family. Like they're not necessarily like always going to do what's best for you. They're going to do what's best for the company. When those things align, it's smooth sailing.
Yeah.
When they get misaligned, you should be thoughtful and watch out and protect yourself, like you're saying. But I think it's just good to level set that like a company is not your like family. The second thing I would say is for companies, I think the broader point we're making is like, we see through this shit.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like I was like, oh man, Meta, good for them. They fired those people abusing their meal credits. They were breaking the rules. I'm like, okay, you should have just laid them off.
Yeah.
Like, come on, what's going on? And I think the backlash is important as a society, because I think severance is something that should be paid out to employees, particularly in the framework of the broader United States. So like, I think the backlash is important to call out companies that are doing this shit. And you're like, come on, bro. Just admit what you're doing, pay them severance. We're all adults here. It wasn't working out, but don't screw someone over like that. Again, if it's fraud, they can, they probably should go to jail. like I'm not saying that. I'm just like fantasy football, The Office.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
So I think it's good to like hold your companies to account and hold other companies to account just for like the world we want to live in. And I think it does hurt their reputation. And I don't think there's like a saying where like reputation is built over a long period of time and destroyed in a day. I don't think that's actually true. And I think Meta's calculus and these other companies' calculus is like, we're an employer that people want to work at. We pay high salaries. If we do this once, no one's going to care. Like, we'll still be able to attract top talent. But I think if it's a repeated behavior, that is when people are going to start thinking like, I want to work for a place that's like not going to screw me if they can.
Yeah.
And so your top talent that has a lot of options to go anywhere is not going to select your company. And I think over the long term, that's bad for the organization.
I agree. And also one last note, we're talking about perks.
Yeah.
Like we're talking about abusing perks. Like if you're so worried about somebody spending the $25 incorrectly that you're providing them for lunch, don't give them $25 for lunch and then complain that they're using it.
I'm so glad you brought this up because I almost forgot my like hottest take that I like feel so deeply in my bones. Don't give people meal credits. If you are willing to spend $25
per day
to give someone
per employee
to buy food. Hear me out, because now you have to hire someone who has to do that and enforce it, and like it's like this weird bureaucratic system that's actually costing more money. Crazy idea. Go to their paycheck. Hear me out. Go to their paycheck. Do 25 times 5. That's going to get you $125 a week.
Yeah.
Multiply by 2, $250. Add $250 to their biweekly paycheck. They can spend the money however they want.
Yeah.
If they want to buy food, great. If they want to buy nail polish, fine. Why are we in the business of telling our employees how to spend the money we want to give them?
Yeah.
Just give them the money.
Yeah.
And then no one has to enforce it. No one's pissed. Problem solved. So Meta, if you need a consultant, call me, because I think I solved this problem for you.
Just add $250 to every paycheck.
Yeah.
Done.
Done deal. And delete
And then
this
you don't
program.
need to fire anybody.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that seems like a good place to wrap it up.
Looks like we've solved yet another problem in corporate America. Kayla, should we roll the credits?
We should.
Our producer is Michaela Heck.
Our technical director is Uchenna Ogu.
Alexandra Bass is our senior manager of corporate strategy.
And our chief content officer is Devin Emery.
This show is a production of Morning Brew.
Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Enjoy those meal credits.